Pelosi tonight urging House lawmakers to join her effort to shut down the president's national emergency declaration. She's expected to get the measure to a vote tomorrow. So let's bring in California Republican Devin Nunes, ranking member of the House Intel Committee, for his take. Great to have you with us tonight, sir. What do you make of this vote tomorrow?
I don't think I make much of it. This is just more politics. It's going to be interesting to see if the Democrats actually put the votes on the board. I have a funny feeling that they won't get all of the Democrats to vote for it. There'll be a lot who actually do want border security in this country, and you'll get virtually no Republicans.
All right, I want to play a little something from Congressman Gregory Meeks, one of your Democratic colleagues. He says that Democrats have to rein in the president because he's gone completely out of control. Congressman, your response?
Well, if you go back in time, the facts are that the Obama administration was the one that were very close to Putin. If you remember back during the election, Mitt Romney, the Republican nominee, was talking about Russia being a big problem. Obama actually said publicly that the 1980s called and wanted their foreign policy back. So, I mean, look, it's normally whatever they accuse you of doing. This is actually, they're the ones that actually supported Putin, not the Republicans.
And obviously this week, there have been a lot of headlines with your name woven in as former and fired FBI official Andrew McCabe is out supporting a new book and trying to sell it. I want to read a little bit of what he said in his book and give you a chance to explain. He talks about having a meeting with the so-called Gang of Eight, which would have included you at the time, to tell lawmakers about the plan or that they had opened this counterintelligence investigation related to the president. He says Nunes was suspected of having surreptitiously been given intelligence by presidential aides during a nighttime rendezvous at the House, information that was then publicized. He talked about he and Rod Rosenstein having a conversation about the fact that you were in the meeting. He says Rod Rosenstein came over and talked to you, came back to him, and then said he's not leaving. What can you tell us about that meeting? I know it's classified, but what's your response?
Well, that's the first thing I would say is that any conversations that happened in that meeting are classified. And so if those conversations did occur, then the Department of Justice should bring charges against Mr. McCabe. I would also add that McCabe is a guy who's been a proven liar over time. There's no question that what he has in the book is total fake news. It's been disproven time and time again. So not only does he have a book that's actually libeling me and slandering me, it's actually a book that's not even true. And so, you take stuff from fake news, this whole idea that I had went to the White House to do something in the middle of the night. It was bogus all the time. The mainstream media can say it as many times as they want, but the fact of the matter is it never happened. So we're going to continue to fight this out in the public. We'll continue to get the truth out. And if we have to, we'll take it to the courts.
And quickly, do you think he'll face any legal repercussions? Because nearly everyone that's gotten caught up in the Mueller investigation that's faced trouble, it's been for lying to investigators or lying to authorities. You're saying that's what he's doing now.
Yeah, so he should. We already know from the Inspector General's report that he had lied. Clearly
candor.
Now, if he's well, okay, I'm not gonna get over the nuance of that. But the bottom line is that even from his book, if this book is true, he should be prosecuted on that, leaking information from the Gang of Eight, and also obstructing a congressional investigation by trying to keep me and others from receiving information. And how much additional information did we not get that we should have gotten at the time? My guess is a whole bunch, because remember, and I'll just make this final point, we still don't have the scope memo of the Mueller investigation, meaning that we don't know what Mueller's actually looking at. My guess is it's the dossier that was paid for by the Democrats that came directly from the Russian government.
Yeah. Congressman, thank you very much for your time tonight. We understand there's no mention of the dossier in the McCabe book. We'll see you soon.
The battle lines being drawn now as House Democrats have introduced a resolution today blocking President Trump's emergency declaration for border wall funding. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says the full House vote will be on Tuesday, and she's not ruling out a lawsuit against the order. Meanwhile, Wisconsin Congressman Mike Gallagher is becoming the first Republican House member to break with the president, telling a local NBC affiliate, quote, "I think the president is right to emphasize the need for border security. I voted for the $5.7 billion. The problem is the president came to Congress asking for something Congress said no. Our system does not then allow the president to say, OK, I'm just going to go do it anyway through some sort of cheat code," end quote. Meanwhile, top Senate Democrat Chuck Schumer is trying to drum up support for a similar resolution he plans to introduce in the GOP-led chamber, where it would face an uncertain future. GOP Senator Susan Collins says she will vote to block the president's declaration. And the Hill has identified 9 other Republicans as potential flippers and voting against the president's declaration. All this setting up a fight that could lead to the president's first ever veto. And that is because, Brian, I don't think any of it gives them a veto proof majority. Boy.
No, they're not going to have a veto-proof majority in the Senate. I do think, though, when I look at the House talking about this resolution, wanting to take back power that's rightfully Congress's, I say, where have you been on that for decades? Yes. You've been giving the executive power for decades to run everything. And by the way, Democrats in the House, you're talking about doing more of that with the Green New Deal. So now you want these constitutional checks and balances? Give me a break. I agree there's an issue there. You're just not the ones who should be making it.
No, I thought the exact same thing. I thought, yeah, go ahead and take back your power. And why don't you do some work while you're at it? Because in the past, you have voted in favor of $9 billion in barriers. Now, all of a sudden, you don't want to fund any of it. You're not for one single dollar. And before that, why don't they go ahead and fix the immigration system? I mean, I think all Americans can agree on whatever fault you see with it where it is, that it needs fixing. And they're the ones that haven't done the legislative work in order to fix that. So, yes, take back the power and get to work.
Yeah. That is a magic 4-letter word. Work.
Work it out. I think Democrats are actually setting themselves up for a problem here, because you've heard with the president's national emergency declaration, Democrats say, well, then we're going to be able to declare a national emergency on climate change and gun control and all these things. But they're about to go on record saying that the president can't or shouldn't do it and take back the power. So in the future, if a Democrat president decides to do something like this, they've already put themselves on record on a House and Senate vote saying that this is something that the president should be doing in the first place. And the thing is to Melissa's point, and we talked about this yesterday as well, you know, the president, even when it gets to his desk as a veto, he's still not going to have any kind of real legislation to sign when it comes to solving the problem of border security. And he can still look at Congress and go, oh, that's great. I'm glad that you've condemned my national emergency. What are you doing about thousands of people flowing over the border every single week?
So, Jessica, before I come to you, let's watch Republican Congressman Nunes reacting to House Democrats' push to block the president's national emergency declaration.
I don't think I make much of it. This is just more politics. It's going to be interesting to see if the Democrats actually put the votes on the board. I have a funny feeling that they won't get all of Democrats to vote for it. There'll be a lot who actually do want border security in this country, and you'll get virtually no Republicans.
Jessica?
Well, Devin Nunes isn't one of our top advisors, and I would say that he's not going to be hired from that soundbite because Democrats will vote against this. The difference between this national emergency declaration and what might come in the past or what has been before is how the cash is being appropriated. President Trump wants to take money from other areas, and I think that if the Democrats were to make a case about climate change or gun violence, they would have better statistics to back that up. The president also, and we all caught it when he was giving that emergency declaration press conference, said, I didn't need to do this. But he admitted in the preamble that it was unnecessary, and he's had over 2 years to do this, and he didn't move on it. So the Democrats have a very strong case here. That's what, is it 16 states that are already suing him about it?
There are 16 so far.
And they're using his language against him, and for good reason.
Brian, first of all, let's just step back, because we haven't really spent much time on what the president said, and those words are still hanging in the air like a thought balloon. What's your thought on it?
Well, look, I think it's funny that we're sitting here parsing the president's words so closely and somehow assuming that that's what this thing tips on. The issue tips on, exactly to your point earlier, has anybody in Congress done the work needed to get something done on immigration? And the answer is no. And when you look at
Why
this
didn't Republicans get it done?
Because
and don't talk to me about a 60 vote majority. I just mean putting something up that they would even put to the floor. You know what I'm trying to say.
Well, they didn't get it done last spring because there were midterm elections coming, and Republicans didn't want to take tough votes and fight out a wall with an election coming. And then they lost the election anyway and put the president in a very difficult spot in December before the House was turned over to Democrats. And Republicans for decades have also been responsible for this ongoing crisis at the border. It's not just Trump. It's not just Obama. Obama. It's not just George W. Bush. It's been going on for a very long time. And here's a president trying to stop the new crisis with Central Americans, and he doesn't seem to be getting any support. So Republicans have a lot of responsibility here, but the reason they didn't get it done over the first 2 years is because they didn't want to take the political risk with the midterm election.
Well, and it takes two to tango here as well. And the fact is they've not had a partner in this. They've not played the ball the right way, but Democrats haven't been a partner in this.
Yeah, they're open borders.
And so as a result, you get nothing done. And so the president looks at that and says, this is an emergency. Congress, you gave me the ability to declare this national emergency. I'm going to do it, and let's see what happens. That's action.
The facts don't bear it out.
In the meantime, one of President Trump's most vocal critics, Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff, penning an open letter in the Washington Post yesterday urging his Republican colleagues to go public with private concerns they might have with the president, especially his national emergency declaration to build the wall. Writing, quote, when the president attacked the independence of the Justice Department by intervening in a case in which he is implicated, you did not speak out. When he attacked the press as an enemy of the people, you again were silent. And now he comes for Congress, seeking to strip it of its greatest power, that of the purse, and you have chosen to keep your misgivings and your rising alarm private. That must end. You must speak out. Katie, I love this. Your rising alarm private.
Your concern, your ongoing concern. I don't trust Adam Schiff at all. I'm sure there are some Republicans, as we've seen on the record, actually, who say, look, we don't like this national emergency. Mike Lee, who's a constitutionalist, has said it's unconstitutional, but it's illegal because of the way that Congress has ceded their power to the executive branch for years and years and years. There are Republicans who are publicly saying, look, we don't like the way that the executive branch has been abused. But for Adam Schiff to think that Republicans on Capitol Hill are going to be allies with him after everything that he has done and plans to do, I think that he's hoping for a little too much.
Jessica, I always think it's rich when they say, in private, they've bemoaned his lack of decency, character, and integrity. These are politicians. Right. I mean, it just sort of, I don't think of them as leaders in character and integrity.
Oh, that's sad.
But it's true. I mean...
Well, the American public agrees, even if they do think that Donald Trump's character is a little bit worse necessarily than your average politician, but millions of people went to the polls in 2016 and said, I don't care about his character. I don't care how he treats his wives or women or whatever it is, but I like conservative justice on the Supreme Court and I want a tax cut. And these people have gotten, the Republicans in Congress have largely gotten an agenda in line with Republican priorities. The national emergency is a bit of an outlier there, but the idea that Adam Schiff is going to be getting them to come out of the wings on this one is rich. But Senate Republicans, I think, are doing their job here. We already have 9 that are saying we're not going for this, which is going to halt it in its tracks. And
Brian?
There have been a ton of cases where Republicans have come out and said, I don't like what the president's doing, number one. So this is factually incorrect. But number 2, this is the common strategy that Schiff and others like to use. Oh, beneath the surface, there's all sorts of rancor. There's all sorts of discord, and it's just ready to pop. And man, is it going to be ugly. He's done that for years now, and he's doing it again, assuming that Republicans aren't on board by and large with the president. I don't think the strategy works, but he sticks with it, and it's clearly something that he's doing repeatedly.
It's also interesting because, as he says, there's all this grumbling behind the scenes. Maybe there is, because this president is about upsetting the status quo and the swamp and the entrenched interests. And Republicans are just as guilty as Democrats as being part of the swamp and part of the establishment and the entrenched interests that he was set to upset, right?
We mentioned earlier that Nancy Pelosi is moving the case for this. It's the big full vote's going to happen on Tuesday. We learned that from a short presser a time ago. And here's what else she said. The promise was Mexico was going to pay for it. Declaring a national emergency to honor an applause line is dishonoring the Constitution. Quote, he is dishonoring the office in which he serves, end quote. Brian?
Look, he's got a problem. We've got a problem as a country. He's taking the step available to him to do it. Whether it ends up being constitutional is a question that we will deal with. But I just think it's rich. Nancy Pelosi here leveling this claim and Adam Schiff leveling it. By the way, who was not supposed to be Speaker of the House? Nancy Pelosi was not supposed to be Speaker of the House because Democrats, the disgruntled Democrats, were supposed to rise up and find new leadership. Where are those hidden voices rising up to make a change?
They're on the forehead with that virtual gavel
we were promised a wave.
No,
what we got was a whimper.
In conservative media, you were promised that. You got a huge wave, actually. And now we have a new election in North Carolina because the Republican did ballot tampering and all that jazz. So it was absolutely a wave. If you look at the historical trends, it's bigger than what past presidents had gotten. And Nancy Pelosi is the right person to be leading, and that's why 5 or 6 of those that did dissent against her are now on board with her.
She's leading because she's really good at